After beating Erica, I go ahead and slap Rosado onto the list of deaths on my profile card. Then we check the bond conversations, with Alir and Roy, Cedal and Lucina doing their C ranks, while Jean and Byleth, Merrin and Corin do their B ranks. Onto the supports. Alir apologizes to Merrin for getting angry in their B rank, and Merrin is sorry too after reflecting on her obliviousness to Alir's feelings. After they have set their boundaries, Alir is more than happy to be observed once more, and Merrin appreciates it. Alir approaches Cedal to let him know his dancing is perfect, yet imparts sage advice that he should eat savoury foods when he wants, as the joy from that would translate to his performance. Cedal still maintains his stance of function first, but he can at least understand Alir's point of view. Then they both go and enjoy some fried dough. Boucheron notices Alir in a sluggish state, ascertaining what could be wrong, until concluding it is stress. Alir confirms he doesn't do anything for stress relief, so Boucheron invites him to go mountaineering or fishing, and Alir accepts excitedly. Alcris apologizes to Cedal for not considering his feelings when bringing up the topic of his past, realizing that the caravan life isn't all about leisure. Cedal doesn't fault him, and lets Alcris know that there was more good than bad he's experienced, and is open to more questions, exciting Alcris. Panette concludes that she has indeed changed from her past self, and blames it on Tamara. She had a rocky life at home, and vented her frustrations by picking fights. That is until she met Tamara, assuming she was the same as herself, and yet was taught how to redirect her anger in a meaningful direction, even though it wasn't intentional on Tamara's part. Fogado apologizes to Tamara after having thought about their sea support and realizes his time away got in the way of their Sibi time, but Tamara understands that he goes out to observe their territory to provide advice in a crisis, but sometimes she just wants Fogado to chill with her. With those out of the way, we make our way back to Illusia for the next Paralogue. Once arriving, Sigurd denotes how this area resembles the Chalfie Duchy, his homeland, where he lived a quiet life with his wife until she got captured to aid in the resurrection of a dark god, and yet there was still hope to be had, and he has his experience a part of his story in this upcoming map, which looks like 2 chapters merged into one. And as you might have guessed, I've never played Genealogy of the Holy War, and my knowledge of it is limited to stuff from Fire Emblem Heroes, the barbecue memes, and the family trees, so whatever happens here is a new experience for me. We start at the bottom right corner of the map, while Sigurd guards the castle at the suspiciously open northern landmass, which is currently cut off from our grounded units as the drawbridge to the west is closed off. We also get introduced to the whopping 3 to 7 range meteor tome in some of the sage's possessions, such as the fabrication guarding the fortress on the southern landmass, who I assume is representing Julius. Despite all this, the biggest threats are 2 sage fabrications at the bottom left corner, packing obscenely high stats, with most of them capped out, as well as having multiple revival stones on top, and I assume these 2 represent Alvis and Deirdre respectively. As for the preparations, I temporarily give Corin to Louis, Erica is returned to Merrin, Clan is given an obstruct staff, and then I just refill everyone's inventories before setting them into these positions and starting the battle, where Alir points out that we'll need to capture the fortress to lower the drawbridge, before we're given the primary objective of slaying the Holy Knights. I start off turn 1 with a cautious approach, Astra storming one of the nearby sages that had a free staff in their possession, having Tamara lure in the hero that was directly north of us while Merrin drags in the enemy units at our west. Turn 2 is then spent taking out the north hero, as well as the lured in sages and sniper, setting up Alcris illusions and keeping Merrin at the vanguard, who unfortunately gets frozen. With turn 3, having a clear path, I became stupidly adamant about making a big splash with Great Ether in the woods ahead, getting Louis killed once because I had him use swap with Panette, because I thought I might have overextended her, which was proven true on this next timeline where there were just enough enemies to barely eliminate her. Then I tried to make this work a third time by trying to have Cedal and Ivy take some of the damage, only to get the latter killed for being too slow. So back to near the start of the turn, Clan and Jean lead the way to the northwest, and then Alcris shoots down the nearby Martial Master. Despite Merrin being frozen, Panette drags her forward with reposition, and for the first time this playthrough, the enemy have finally figured out to use the Fracture Staff first before sending in someone to attack. Now on turn 4, we swiftly defeat the 3 closest enemies. I have Panette set Great Ether once again to the southwest, knowing for sure she won't die this time, and Linden recovers Merrin's wounds. I then notice that Alir just has enough movement to make it to the fortress in one go, so I decide to take the risk by using Roy's advanced skill to close the gap, and cleanly remove one of the sages next to Fabrication Julius. Clan then supports by moving into the Meteor Tome range and fully obstructing a sage that was already surrounded by rocks, and just as I expected, Clan baits Fabrication Julius's attack. Panette starts turn 5 with Great Ether, then Temera eliminates the survivor. I have Alir continue his momentum with Blazing Lion, engulfing the front of the fortress in flames. Alcris snipes the sage that got trapped earlier, and then takes an Emblem energy tile at the beach. I have Panette set to bait in a Freeze Staff user from the southwest corner, then Fogado helps push Alir's opening to destroy Fabrication Julius's Revival Stone. Clan goes in to mitigate the attacks on Alir again, and then he gets healed by Jean. A better outcome occurs in the south where Panette gets attacked instead of frozen, then we enter turn 6. Having naturally split my army in 2, the nearby sages at the south are eliminated while Merrin is positioned to lure in Fabrication Deirdre. After some careful deliberation, I decide to have the north team capture the fortress, and thankfully, we're provided some breathing room before the drawbridge is lowered, so Jean Goddess stands to let his allies clean up as much of the surrounding area as they can. The drawbridge gets lowered, and enemy reinforcements flood the open plains above just before turn 7 begins. Before even thinking about the oncoming wave, I have Louis engaged to lock the 2 jacked fabrications in place. Merrin engages and breaks Deirdre's first revival stone. Panette charges in to crush the second, before moving out of Fabrication Julius's attack range to finish off Fabrication Deirdre. We then get Panette and Louis healed up, while the north team awaits the oncoming threat with Alir taking one of the far western Emblem energy tiles. Sigurd finally makes his move, and Merrin is severely burned by Fabrication Julius. The enemy army takes control of half the drawbridge, and now we're on turn 8. Merrin gets fully recovered before I have her apply Draconic Hex and a second stack of poison on Fabrication Julius. Then Temera breaks his first revival stone. Merrin is refreshed to break the second. Alcris comes down from the north to break the third. Then to ensure neither Linden nor Seadog get nuked, I have Panette attack despite her dubious hit rates, and she successfully crushes our last major threat. We conclude the turn by fully conquering the southern landmass just before Sigurd leads his invasion by striking at Alir, not realizing he rushed into his demise on this final turn. Merrin is refreshed to the front line to apply her debuffs, and Fogado breaks the first revival stone. Alcris gets dragged along by Panette so he can help Ivy break the second. Clan shreds most of Sigurd's final HP bar before we finish him off with Blazing Lion.
I will win! Ha!
Sigurd is impressed by our performance and then questions if Alir still wants to avenge Lumera, and after reflecting, Alir is not too sure. Sigurd then imparts his experience in that he bears no grudges, and then questions if Alir is still able to fight with conviction, and Alir reaffirms that. And so, our max bond level is unlocked with Sigurd. Back at the Somniel, we view Clan and Micaiah's C-rank bond, as well as the A-rank bonds for Alcris and Lyn, plus Panette and Ike, all before we get to a massive list of supports. Alir catches Fogado training hard once again, gives him company, and then offers to have that dinner he wanted back in their B support. And while tempted, Fogado declines, considering it to be a reward to strive for when he's earned it. Alir heads back to Linden to discuss the topic of sleep, and Linden tries to back away, but Alir figures out that Vander gave him a stern warning about what happened in their sea support. Even though there's no ill will, Lyndon still discourages the discussion, calling it inefficient, but Alir turns that back on him by suggesting they should start immediately. Fogado reviews Clan's observations of himself and is impressed by the succinct impressions being spot on. Unfortunately, Clan still has no clue on how to bridge the gap between them, and so Fogado invites Clan to some lunch so he can reveal his secret of being a man amongst men. Merrin and Temera continue directly from their B support, where Temera was serious on knighting Merrin. The two made their way to Merrin's village and successfully got the matriarch's blessing on the condition that she returns to lead one day, and from then on, Merrin became Temera's follower. She reaffirms her allegiance, and Temera hopes Merrin stays by her side. Ivy and Zelkov's C support can be summed up as the two disliking each other, though in Zelkov's case all that matters is Ivy has his obedience. Temera catches a grinning Alfred, thinking he was off to have a snack, when instead he's off to train as usual. While Temera is briefly disappointed, she tags along, thinking it could be fun, as it can be followed up with a meal right after, and Alfred is fine by that arrangement. Just before we leave, I refine Merrin's silver dagger all the way to +5, giving it a crazy might boost, and then I feed Clan the seraph robe we got a while ago. Then we finally head over to the next Paralogue. When we arrive, Leif finds the area similar to the River Thracia, a site of much bloodshed, where he faced the tactician Sias as well as the powerful Reinhardt, a difficult battle to him that we'll experience ourselves on this map, where I'm even less familiar with Thracia than I am with Genealogy, aside from the days when Reinhardt was a menace in Fire Emblem Heroes. We start off in the northwest corner of the map, and the approach to Leif can be divided into 3 chunks. The first part, which is directly south of us, consists of 4 unpromoted units with various droppable items. While easy looking, they are covered by 3 ballistas and 3 high priests that have 2 staves in their possessions, which consist of Fracture, Silence, or Freeze. Then there's the 9 soldiers on the central island before leading into the castle approach, where Leif leads a battalion of mage knights with Thoron tomes, which is covered by even more ballistae along the way. I put Sigurd back onto Louis, Lyndon is given Corin, Temera is bestowed Lyn, and I give Alcrest Lachesis B. Everyone is put into these positions, and then we start the battle, where we must defeat the Sage Lord. Turn 1 begins with me moving cautiously, only to find the unpromoted fabrications start running away, making me panic as I want their items. So on turn 2, I have almost everyone blitz into the ballista ranges to catch up with them, only to get Seedal sniped, which confused me as I calculated that he should have survived at least 1 hit. However, what I neglected to realize was that the ballistae on this map provide +15 attack to their user, making them way more deadly than usual. Having understood that, my maneuver doesn't change much. I have a refreshed Louis engaged to just barely reach the Speedwing holder. I get a few Goddess Dance units down too, with Temera Astrastorming and collecting the Speedwing, Alcrest taking down another with a Magic Tonic, and an engaged Panette wipes out the one with a Silent Staff. Clan and Panette both get heavily injured by the ballistas, then enemy cavalry reinforcements start appearing in groups of 3 from the bottom right corner of the map, and this will go on for about 9 or 10 turns. Turn 3, we ignore the last bit of bait and have Louis start damaging the snipers below. Temera sets up core doubles to help our advance, then we take out the sniper and hero in our path with Panette, Merrin and Alcrest. Everyone else, aside from Clan, Seedal and Ivy, push into the ballista firing zone, with Clan using Great Sacrifice just to heal Panette, while Jean tops up Clan. And bafflingly, despite the illusions being out and the fact that there was the squishier Jean, one of the ballistas just decide to perfectly delete Fogado's health. So this time around, I have Fogado, and just in case, Jean stay away, and thankfully the illusions do their work. Turn 4, Merrin shuts down one of the ballistas, and then we set things up so Panette can prepare a Great Ether that will wipe out the remaining 2. Temera dispels the surviving illusion to summon out a fresh set. Ivy starts luring the squadron on the central island, and thinking that only Fogado had the aggro issue from the previous timeline, I mistakenly bring Clan into the firing zone while not at max health, and he gets shot down before the illusions too. So here we are in the next timeline for turn 5, where Clan stayed out of the way and Panette clears the last immediate ballista threats. And although they hadn't tried to freeze us yet, we take out the 2 high priests that had those staves while leaving the last one alone, with Louis claiming an Emblem NG tile as they do so. I then have Alir meet the oncoming enemy forces halfway to slow their advance with Blazing Lion, and he's able to start whittling down the generals already with his Levin sword. Turn 6, I have a refreshed Merrin rush to Alir's side to block the central part of the crossing, while Tamara takes the bottom part, hiding within the woods, as I know she wouldn't be able to take too many hits. I then have Ivy strike at a Bow Knight from below, thinking I could canter her to safety at the southern waters, forgetting there's a ballista covering that area from the eastern bank. So instead, she burns down one of the generals worn down by Alir. Unfortunately, the woods tile was not enough to help Tamara's survivability, causing us to go back, and I have Alir block the lower row instead, which works out much better as the woods above is enough to mitigate the enemy breakthrough. Turn 7, we stand our ground between the bridges, taking out all the enemies in our immediate vicinity and having Louis complete our blockade, and we slowly progress with this formation of Alir, Merrin and Louis at the spearhead. There's a brief hiccup around turn 10, where I push too far and Merrin gets sniped by the ballista and finished off by the cavalry. So I just make sure she's not in range of it on the next timeline, and then we finally take control of the central island on turn 11, where we just exhaust the last ammo of the southeastern ballista. Turn 12, Merrin and Louis blockade the southeastern bridge, with everyone else helping to clean up the reinforcements, while Alir sits on the fort for bait duty of the eastern ballista, exhausting both fronts around turn 15. So now, I have Alir set to bait the final ballista, while everyone else crosses over the final bridge, only for Leif to activate this map's trap of collapsing the far western bridge, which confused me more than anything, as it would have helped him more if he did that a lot earlier. Anyway, Leif starts charging at us with his squadron of Mage Knights. Turn 16, I have Alir retreat to the central island fort first. Then I come up with the idea of utilizing the Obstruct staff to funnel the Mage Knights into single file between the boulders and the river, and it works out well, as on turn 17, I have Louis engage and perform the most satisfying override this playthrough, nearly annihilating all of the Mage Knight squadron with Sigurd's Rider's Bane, and then we rescue him out to the central island before he gets destroyed by the leftovers, and most of our units follow suit, luring in the leftovers away from Leif. We then make sure Louis is healed up first before we eliminate both on turn 18, as I have Louis simultaneously set to tank the northern ballista. As for Leif, I have Panette engage and get Great Ether active. Then, just across the river, we make a few 3-range hits as I start having the bulk of my army make their way towards the castle. Leif strikes with quadruple hits, and Panette counters with Great Ether on turn 19. Then I have Merrin join her to break the first revival stone, and the two delay Leif for the next few turns, as Tamara exhausts the last North Ballista ammo, so we can freely spend turns 20 to 23, looting the last of Leif's troops as they are all stationary. And, as a fun fact, the general of the castle has a Meteor Tome and a Fracture Staff in their possession they can't use. Once the looting has been completed, we finish off Leif on turn 24.
If this is war, so be it.
And so, I lose.
Alir appreciates Leif's guidance, making Leif understand why the trial is located here, as this was where he was imparted wisdom to make your sacrifices worth something, and to strive for a good future. He once again pledges his services to us, and then our max bond level is unlocked with Leif.